Hello everyone and welcome to the AmeriCorps VISTA Sponsor Orientation webinar. We're excited to have you so that we can show you a glimpse of the information and resources that you need to carry out your new role as VISTA Project Director in your AmeriCorps VISTA program. As we mentioned earlier, we're extremely happy to have you with us today, and during the session you'll hear from two CNCS staff members throughout the presentation. My name is Eric Powell, and I'm an AmeriCorps VISTA training specialist at the Corporation for National and Community Service, located in Washington, D.C. And I very proudly and happily served as an AmeriCorps VISTA member in 2006 in the great state of Rhode Island, and then as a VISTA leader in also another great state, slightly larger than Rhode Island, not hard, in Chicago as a VISTA leader. So I'm very happy to be with all of you today.
Hi everyone, I'm Tanya Beliz. I'm a State Program Officer with the Office of Field Liaison at the Corporation for National and Community Service, and I am located in Austin, Texas. I served as an AmeriCorps VISTA member in the Dallas-Fort Worth area from 2012 through 2013. Throughout our presentation, we may be joined by a few other CNCS state regional offices as well as VISTA colleagues in assisting us with the chat panel and working together to provide you essential information and answer your questions.
So we're going to transition to a very quick first activity. You've already learned a little bit about Tanya and myself, so let's learn about who's with us today. This may also help you make connections as you learn more about the AmeriCorps VISTA program and utilize each other for support as a great resource. So please take a quick moment to type your answers in the chat panel. And again, to access that, you can click the View Options menu at the top to exit full screen, and you should be able to see the chat panel. So the questions are, what is the name of your organization? Where are you located, city and state? And then what is your favorite thing to do in the autumn season? As you type, we'll answer those questions as well. You already know that Tanya and I both work for CNCS, and you know where we're located. I will say that recently my favorite autumn activity has actually been going out in search for what I call the perfectly shaped pumpkin. I love pumpkins and I love certain shapes, so it's a difficult but fun task. Tanya, what about you?
Well, Eric, my favorite autumn fall activity is spending a Sunday afternoon surrounded by family and friends and just watching an exciting football game.
That actually sounds fun right about now, but of course we're in a webinar, so I can't do that. But I see plenty of other individuals on this webinar are all around the country, in Tennessee and Kansas, Ohio, a lot of really good fall activities, playing paintball. I'm horrible at that game, so I don't play it, but kudos to you. Oklahoma, West Virginia, so good representation around the country. And, oh, someone who likes to visit the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. I'm going to give you an air high five because I love botanical gardens. So keep those comments coming because it's really great to not only see where everyone's located, but also learn a little fun fact about people. So thank you for that short activity. We're now going to start into the meat and potatoes of our presentation, and I'll turn it over to Tanya for a few more introductory comments.
Thanks, Eric. While this information is most relevant for VISTA project directors, we have designed this session so that everyone involved in the management and oversight of the VISTA project will gain valuable knowledge from reviewing this content. We recommend that VISTA project directors, project and site supervisors, and authorized representatives all review this content so that your organization will be well prepared to manage a VISTA program. In our development, we are assuming that you are relatively new or even brand new to VISTA. In developing today's presentation, we are assuming that participants have looked at a number of materials ahead of this time. These include VISTA 101 and 201, and these materials are stored on the VISTA campus. Just to get a quick idea, in the chat panel, type yes if you've completed them, no if you have not gotten to them yet, or in progress if you have started but did not finish. As you type your responses, we created these resources to best prepare you for being a VISTA sponsor and to give you access to information you may need while in your role.
Looking at the results, it looks like quite a few people have completed it, which is great. Hopefully you did find that as useful as we found to create it and make it available to sponsors. Some of you have not yet done it, and there's a smaller group that are currently in progress that may have started it and been busy with work and are going to get back to it. So that's great. Keep in mind that if you have not yet completed them, or if you're in progress, we do think it is in your best interest to complete them as soon as possible, especially because it is part of the introductory part of the VISTA sponsor orientation, and we really want to set you up for success so that you can set your VISTA members up for success and your whole VISTA program. So let's go ahead and jump into our presentation. I guess we're not really jumping, it's more sauntering. This is the agenda for today's orientation. Today's session will focus on key pieces that will give you the initial information that you need to ensure your success as a VISTA project. So we're going to talk about where to start as a VISTA sponsor. It'll cover resources and people that can help you get your bearings in the world of AmeriCorps. The big picture, an overview of the Corporation for National and Community Service, including the structure of national service, CNCS programs, our chain of communication, and the core principles of VISTA. Under core responsibilities, we'll briefly highlight your responsibilities that relate to VISTA member support and project management, as well as important governing documents for our work together. We'll provide you keys to success, which includes tips, training, tools, and resources that are available for you, and also a sense of what success looks like. We'll then segue into next steps, talking about where to go next on your learning path, finishing out with a wrap-up, closing out our session today, and finally more time to answer questions that you have. So in the chat panel, thanks to our wonderful team, you can access a link to download an optional one-page acronym list. This is an activity that you're certainly welcome to and encouraged to do during this webinar. I know it seems odd that we're asking you to multitask, but it is optional, but encouraged. The acronym list has a few obvious acronyms, such as VISTA, which we hope all of you know what VISTA stands for, but there's also some acronyms that only the seasoned VISTA project sponsors will know. Your goal is to fill in all the blanks by the end of this webinar. Again, the link is in the chat panel if you would like to download it, and at the end of the webinar, we'll post a link in the chat for you to download the answer sheet to see how you did. For us at VISTA and at CNCS, acronyms are a good place to start in your role with the VISTA project because you'll often see and hear many of them used frequently, and they will help you better become acquainted with our work.
If you are a new VISTA sponsor, it can be overwhelming to figure out what you need to know, where to find information, and who to reach out for help. Here are a few key resources for you. We will refer to these throughout the presentation today. And as a result of our presentation, we want to be sure that everyone on today's webinar will learn a core set of terms for VISTA project management. This graphic shows where to find information on a variety of topics. The resources on the screen will connect you to websites and resources such as the CNCS website, which will connect you to various things, including publications. You should create a VISTA Campus account if you have not done so already, and review the sponsor handbook to check out other VISTA sponsor and supervisor information that is available. eGrants, for instance, contains information about your application, your VISTA assignment description, reporting, and other topics. The resources on the screen now will connect you to people and regulations as you seek support and guidance. The National Service Hotline is who you contact with e-grant questions, questions about VISTA member pay and relocation benefits, as well as cost-sharing billing. You would contact your CNCS state regional office for information about project compliance, issues with VISTA members, changing and approving VADs, and anything else project-related. It is important for you to know what resources are available and where they are, so that you can also obtain the support you need in your VISTA project. These links and more are available in your VISTA Sponsor Resource Guide. As a reminder, you can find a link to the Sponsor Resource Guide in the chat panel. Along with getting a handle on the written materials that support you and your VISTA project, I want to underscore the importance of establishing communication expectations with your staff, VISTA members, sub-site staff, and CNCS staff. One way to avoid unforeseen issues and complications during the VISTA year is to establish a solid communication chain. In this task, your top resource will be your CNCS state or regional office. The CNCS state or regional office is able to provide a lot of support and also direct you to key tools and resources. Technical assistance from the CNCS state regional office can take many forms. For example, they can provide technical support for things like member recruitment, training, reporting, and other things you're responsible for, and they can offer support for you in member management and any challenges. For VISTA members and supervisors with questions or concerns, you as a VISTA sponsor are the first line resource. For questions relating to benefits, you can direct your VISTA member to the VISTA Member Support Unit, the VISTA Member Handbook, or other resources on the VISTA campus. Depending on how your project is structured, it might be the case that you are the main point of contact for members and supervisors. If it's a question that you're not able to address, then you would contact your CNCS state regional office. Your CNCS state regional office has access to other departments and units at the corporation in the event they need additional input. In addition to the resources included on the VISTA Sponsor Resource Guide, we want to highlight some key contacts and information that we want to be sure you know about. On the top of the list is your CNCS State Regional Office. They are there to help ensure you have the tools, resources, and knowledge you need to lead a successful VISTA project. The VISTA Sponsor Outreach and Recruitment page referenced here should be the one of the first places you go because it contains information about recruitment, marketing, fact sheets, and much more. Much of the material available on this page is print ready, so be sure to check it out. The VISTA campus is filled with helpful tools and resources. You can find the member handbook and sponsor handbook there, as well as a variety of courses to help you through the life of your project. There is also a supervisor forum where you can have a dialogue with other supervisors from around the country. Many of the resources highlighted on the resource guide point you to the VISTA campus. Be sure you create a supervisor account on the VISTA campus, otherwise you won't be able to access everything referenced in the sponsor resource guide. The National Service Hotline offers support to you as well as your members and as well as your supervisors. They can help with common e-grant questions, reset passwords, etc., but you can also escalate calls to the e-grants help desk. Be sure to keep the e-grant support link handy, but remember you can also call the National Service Hotline. The National Service Hotline will escalate calls to the VISTA Member Support Unit, or the VMSU. The VMSU can troubleshoot member issues related to their living allowance or relocation payment issues, and can also answer questions about benefits such as the Education Award. You all may also want to check out the last website for gear and materials, pubs.nationalservice.gov. On this site, you can find things like posters and brochures. These resources are free and may prove very useful to you to assist in recruiting, talking about the VISTA program, and much more. Since you all may get questions from VISTA members, and you may want to know for yourself, VISTA members who successfully complete all of their pre-work and submit their oath form correctly receive an email within their first couple of weeks of service. The email contains instructions on how to order specific free gear when we provide them, which includes a VISTA polo shirt, a t-shirt, a VISTA label pin, a tote bag, a journal, and a water bottle. These items are restricted to only VISTA members, and they must be ordered by the members themselves using the specific instructions they are sent. However, there are lots of other materials and resources you as a sponsor can order on pubs.nationalservice.gov.
Let's broaden the scope just a little bit and look more so at the bigger picture. So especially those of you who have already completed VISTA 101 and 201, and those of you who are in progress, you already learned about VISTA, about its mission to empower communities to find solutions to eliminating poverty, and you learned how VISTA members build capacity. And again, if you have not completed VISTA 101 and VISTA 201, you can access the VISTA sponsor resource guide that we posted in the chat earlier to complete them. But now we'll take a minute to discuss a few key principles that are central to the AmeriCorps VISTA program. The Corporation for National and Community Service improves lives, strengthens communities, and fosters civic engagement through service and volunteering. As the nation's largest grant maker in support of service and volunteering, CNCS engages Americans of all ages and backgrounds in service to their communities every year through Senior Corps, AmeriCorps, and other programs. As you probably know, CNCS was created in 1993, and it engages more than 5 million Americans every year in improving communities through service. CNCS supports service at national, state, and local levels with a variety of service opportunities. I'll pass it over to Tanya to dive a little bit deeper into the work that CNCS does by discussing CNCS program areas.
Thanks, Eric. Under the broad mission of CNCS, there are two main programming areas. There is Senior Corps and AmeriCorps. Senior Corps was created in 1965 and includes 3 different programs to engage and serve senior adults in the U.S. Individuals who are 55 and older can join the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, or RSVP, the Foster Grandparent Program, or the Senior Companion Program. AmeriCorps was created in 1994, and over 1 million members have contributed over 1 billion service hours across America. As you can see, there are 3 different AmeriCorps programs: AmeriCorps State and National, AmeriCorps NCCC, and AmeriCorps VISTA. CNCS state and regional offices administer VISTA and Senior Corps programs with your support. For example, the CNCS state office here in Texas oversees 41 VISTA projects with about 370 VISTA members and growing, and the Texas state office also oversees 38 Senior Corps projects that manage about 14,064 Senior Corps volunteers. This is just one of the many examples of CNCS state regional offices and the programs involved. Next, we'll turn our attention to the history of VISTA.
Continuing from some of the dates we gave you earlier, the VISTA program's rich history began in 1964 when President Lyndon B. Johnson declared a war on poverty and signed the Economic Opportunity Act. This act created Volunteers in Service to America, which we know as VISTA, and other programs to combat poverty. VISTA is authorized under the Domestic Volunteer Service Act of 1973 as amended. This DVSA is a statute, and statutes define the legal boundaries within which the VISTA program may operate. Then, in 1993, with President Bill Clinton's signing of the National and Community Service Trust Act, both CNCS and the AmeriCorps programs were established. The National Community Service Trust Act also merged several national programs, including VISTA, to be part of AmeriCorps. The 2009 Edward M. Kennedy Serve America Act reauthorized and expanded CNCS's national service programs. Your VISTA projects were selected because they demonstrate a substantial connection to VISTA's mission, objectives, and principles. As you know, VISTA's mission is to strengthen organizations that alleviate poverty through volunteering and the mobilization of resources. VISTA is the only AmeriCorps program focused exclusively on fighting poverty. VISTA also has 3 specific objectives of the program: to strengthen local agencies and organizations to carry out the purpose of the program, to encourage volunteer service at the local level, to generate the commitment of private sector resources. As you probably can see, VISTA's objectives directly support building capacity, which is good. Finally, these are the core principles that shape everything AmeriCorps VISTA does: anti-poverty focus, community empowerment, capacity building, sustainable solutions. Remember that your VISTA projects specifically were selected because they demonstrate a strong connection to VISTA's mission, objectives, and core principles. So now that you know the core principles and mission of VISTA, we'll talk about some key terms and definitions. This information is based on VISTA's authorizing legislation, and it is important to understand how each role is identified. When we use the terms project or VISTA project, we refer to a set of VISTA activities operated and overseen by a VISTA sponsor. Sponsor, project sponsor, VISTA sponsor, or VISTA project sponsor means a public agency or private nonprofit organization that receives assistance and is responsible for operating and overseeing a VISTA project. A public agency may be a federal, state, local, or tribal government. Project director or VISTA project director is a staff person of the sponsor who has been assigned by the sponsor the overall responsibility for the management of the VISTA project. Project directors are responsible for executing all aspects of the project as outlined by the sponsor. Supervisor, should be no surprise, is an individual who directly supervises a VISTA member. This can be at the project level or at a site or subrecipient level. Project sponsors are responsible for ensuring that all member supervisors are trained. It is important to note that some project directors are also supervisors, and if your project has VISTA leaders are not allowed to supervise VISTA members. They are not supervisors. And then, as Tanya mentioned earlier, the CNCS State and Regional Office is an office that we have throughout the United States. There are CNCS state and regional offices that represent all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the U.S. territories. And keep in mind that some offices are responsible for multiple states and territories. Next, Tanya will talk about how CNCS state and regional office staff can help you with outreach, program development, technical assistance, monitoring, and evaluation, all in support of your VISTA project and its future success.
By now, you should be familiar with your CNCS State Regional Office. Let's do a quick check to see who you work with. So if you could please type the name of your CNCS Program Officer in the chat. . I see a few names populating in the chat. Great. Thank you. I do see a few of my colleagues listed in the chat. And it is totally okay if you do not currently know who your program officer or portfolio manager is. You will want to find out soon. In addition to contacting your direct program officer, you are able to send an email to your entire CNCS state regional office using the two-letter state abbreviation followed by @cns.gov. For example, for Texas, it would be tx@cns.gov. As we said in the beginning, we know a bunch of folks on today's webinar are new to our work, so you may not know or have had a chance to connect with the CNCS State Regional Office team yet. As we discussed earlier, CNCS State Regional Offices manage AmeriCorps VISTA as well as Senior Corps programs in their states. For VISTA projects, the CNCS State Regional Office helps develop, support, and facilitate VISTA projects throughout their life cycle. CNCS staff, regional offices are there to sing your praises and help you throughout challenging times. They're available to help with member emergencies, troubleshooting member issues, and policy questions. They can also support you by connecting you to resources and training tools for you and your members. One important note here. The CNCS State Regional Office also plays an important role in approving candidates for VISTA service and removing members from service. As a reminder, only CNCS can approve members for service. The CNCS State Regional Office carefully reviews all applicants that you recommend for VISTA service to ensure they're a good fit for the program. Likewise, CNCS alone has the authority to remove a member from service. This is one of the reasons why it's critically important for you to update your CNCS State Regional Office early and often when it comes to member issues. We'll talk more about the importance of documenting member performance and actions later. Your VISTA members are critical and necessary for the success of your VISTA program. As you all know, VISTA service is a 12-month full-time commitment where VISTA members provide indirect service to build capacity and sustainability with the programs that work to alleviate poverty. VISTAs are members. They are not employees, interns, nor volunteers with your sponsoring organization. VISTAs serve at their sponsoring agency. They do not work there. And also, VISTAs receive a modest living allowance that aligns with the community they are serving. Now, let's look at a few important topics for your members and those of us that want to support them. Members have questions on a variety of topics, and the topic of their questions often depend on how far into their service term they are. VISTA questions tend to fall under one of these categories: benefits, forms, the end of service benefit, travel, and service letters. Members who are about to start service might have more questions about the amount of their living allowance as well as when and how it's paid. Don't forget to fully explain member benefits and address some of these topics while interviewing those high qualified candidates. For example, some benefits, such as the living allowance, are available to all VISTA members. Other benefits, such as relocation assistance and child care, are only available to some VISTA members and require the VISTA member to take action in order to make use of the benefit. You'll want to be sure that all members carefully and correctly complete their W-4 and direct deposit information. Members should keep their direct deposit information updated since they may change banks if they relocate for service, so that they can receive their living allowance and any approved travel reimbursements or emergency reimbursements. Also, remember that sponsors are required to reimburse members for any service-related travel that is required of them. For example, if the VISTA assignment description or VAD outlines that the VISTA members will be traveling to community meetings and setting up partnerships, sponsors must reimburse members at the rate your organization uses for reimbursement. In addition to the required onboarding forms, VISTA candidates are required to accept the terms and conditions of VISTA service before they can start. This is an online course that they can take on the VISTA campus. Now, Eric, since these are highlights of important things VISTA sponsors should understand so they can assist their members, perhaps you can walk us through a few more important topics for members.
Sure, that's really, really important, and especially because newer VISTA members that you may have or recently have recruited will probably have questions about how do they request federal forbearance on their educational loans. They may also ask you questions about how the end-of-service cash stipend differs from the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award, or even how they can use the Education Award. So it's really important that you are understanding and aware of these benefits and member topics. One quick important note that I will say is it is important to us in the VISTA program to distinguish the living allowance from the cash stipend. The living allowance is the money that VISTA members are paid every 2 weeks. The stipend is a benefit that only comes at the end of service and only for those members who request that end of service cash stipend benefit. Members who are more well-seasoned and later into their service may need additional information about things such as non-competitive eligibility and how that works, or when they'll be able to access their VISTA verification of service letter. Because of the content of this webinar, we won't go into detail about each of these, but we do want to highlight this on the screen because there is more detail about each of these on the VISTA campus website. This screen does show a lot of topics that are of interest to VISTA members, especially around benefits. It is ultimately the VISTA members' responsibility to understand the details around these topics, including knowing where to find the benefits and details, and knowing what action they must take to utilize them. However, it's also essential that you know the details around them so that you can best support your VISTA members and also inform candidates during recruitment season about some of the benefits and other options available to them. Again, you can find more details about all of these on the VISTA campus website. You'll see on the screen now, and also on the handout that we posted a link to earlier, there are links to great resources for these types of questions. You can also easily find them by just going to the VISTA campus and using the search bar to search for benefits or member handbook or things like that. The VISTA Campus Benefits Hub is really the first place for you and your VISTA members to go if you have questions or want to know more information about the VISTA member-specific benefits. Then the VISTA Member Handbook has really important information and guidance regarding all of these topics and more. Be sure to reference that as well as the VISTA Sponsor Handbook and the Resource Guide for links to more detailed guidance, including things that a lot of VISTA members have questions about, such as how and when they can use their personal or medical leave. All those details are in the VISTA Member Handbook. And then finally, VISTA members are also notified that if they have questions that are not in the handbook, that they cannot find on the VISTA campus, they can certainly contact the VISTA Member Support Unit, or the VMSU, to answer questions about benefits and get the support that they need. So we'll pause for a brief minute here to see if there are any questions in the chat panel based on what we've just covered. As you know, we covered quite a bit so far about the structure of CNCS. We talked a little bit about member benefits and a whole lot more so far. We do still have some more topics to discuss, but we'll wait just a few seconds to see if there's any questions that come in via the chat panel. I haven't seen any questions so far coming in. The ones that have come in seem to be technology related, so thank you to Kim and Jeff for responding to those. But if there are no questions, certainly we'll give it a few more seconds and then we'll continue. We just want to make sure that we can best support you in your new role as VISTA Project Director and answer any questions that you might have. So right now, seeing none. Oh, I see I spoke too soon. There is a question that, is there a separate supervisor manual from the sponsor manual? So that's an easy question and sort of a funny question in a good way. So there is only one manual, but I think part of the confusing situation might be, years ago we used to call it the supervisor manual, and then we recently changed it to be the VISTA Supervisor Handbook, because there's a VISTA Member Handbook, so it makes sense to correlate the same language. So there is just the VISTA Supervisor Handbook that outlines more details and rules and regulations for supervisors. That question may also be related to, in addition to the VISTA Supervisor Handbook, separately, not really policy related, just as an additional resource, is the VISTA Sponsor Resource Guide that we posted earlier. But there is just the one VISTA Supervisor Handbook located on the VISTA campus. Next question. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to scroll through really quickly. We have time for about 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll continue on. So the next question was, do AmeriCorps VISTA members have required hours to complete? So many of you probably have known from your research that AmeriCorps VISTA and AmeriCorps State and National are slightly similar but very different programs. AmeriCorps State and National members have to serve, if they're serving full-time, have to serve 1,700 hours over the course of a year. AmeriCorps VISTA is very different. AmeriCorps VISTA is a 1-year, 365-day position. So VISTAs are expected to serve full-time, 35 to 40 hours a week, depending on your agency, but they must serve 365 days. You, as their supervisor, or whoever their supervisor is responsible for keeping track of their time and attendance. I won't go into detail about that, but all the details about that are in the VISTA Member Handbook and the VISTA Sponsor Handbook. But yes, VISTA members do serve 365 days. The next question, thanks for the question, is who is responsible for informing the VISTA members about their benefits? And are these benefits supposed to be the sponsor's benefits? So it's kind of a 2-part question, but I'll answer it in saying, in terms of who's responsible for informing the VISTA member about their benefits, in an ideal world, as you're recruiting applicants, you would alert them or remind them of the benefits available to them so that they can make the best decision as to whether or not they could make the VISTA program work for them based on the benefits available to them. Once they start service, and again, I won't go into a lot of detail, but I'll quickly say, once they start service, they attend a VISTA member orientation conducted by the VISTA training unit, my office here in DC, and we do go over in general some of the benefits that they're connected to, but before that, we send them an email with a link to the VISTA Campus Benefits Hub so that we're reminding them, we're going to cover some of your important benefits, but it's ultimately the VISTA member's responsibility to do the research to know what benefits are available to them. And certainly we ask you as their VISTA sponsor to remind them or check in with them to make sure that they're making use of their benefits as much as they can. I'll answer one more question and then we'll move on, and we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, so please keep your questions coming if you have any more. So the question is, are VISTA members required or encouraged to communicate directly with their CNCF state or regional office, or should most of their AmeriCorps-related questions go through the sponsoring organization? I'll start to answer that, and then I'll turn it over to Tanya for her state office experience. So in my many years here, I've seen, from the VISTA headquarters perspective, VISTA members always have direct contact to their CNCF state office and should at least be in communication with the state office in relation to using leave, especially if they're about to exhaust all their leave, if there's any major situation that comes up, but also to let the state office know about any really good things, like if they just applied for and received a grant for a lot of money. The state office is interested in hearing about those because that ultimately gets filed into reports. But to answer the question, are they required to communicate with the CNCS state office? There's only a few instances where they are required to, and that's pretty much if the VISTA decides that they no longer want to serve. Ideally, they would communicate with their supervisor and sponsor and the state office, but their supervisor is their direct point of contact who should always be in touch with them. And if they have questions or if the VISTA has any issues with their supervisor, they certainly can reach out to their CNCS state office. Tanya, I'll turn it over to you in case you have any other additional comments or if there's something I missed in relation to that question.
So in conjunction with what Eric mentioned, definitely you as a VISTA sponsor should be the first point of contact for the VISTA member while they are in service, just addressing any questions they may have however, if there are any questions that the VISTA member has a question about or needs an answer, the state office is available to assist them in any questions. But here at the Texas State Office, we definitely like to give that first point of contact to the supervisors so that we all are in the loop of any questions the VISTA member may have.
And I'll briefly add, thank you for that, Tanya. Stemming from what Tanya said, I'll just add one more piece in that in your communication with your VISTA members, even at the stage of recruitment, and especially once they start on board and you go through your on-site orientation and training, make sure you're also articulating the communication chain that you want them to connect with you, their supervisor, let them know if you prefer text or email. I mean, it's simple things, but all these things make a difference in terms of documentation, but also in terms of building a really strong relationship with and for your VISTA members and the VISTA program. So I know there's still more questions coming in. Right now we're going to go ahead and continue, but we will have time for more questions at the end of the presentation. Right now we're going to take a quick look at the agenda to see what we've covered so far and what's coming up next. So far today, we briefly looked at where you start as a new project sponsor. We looked at the origins of the VISTA program and the structure of CNCS. We also talked about some of the important details about the VISTA member positions, the benefits, and resources. Next, we'll take a look at some of the core responsibilities that VISTA sponsors have, which also may answer some of your questions. As a VISTA sponsor, you have joined VISTA sponsors from across the nation in the mission of fighting poverty in your community. Your role is important and essential to the success of the VISTA project, the members, and ultimately the impact on the poverty community. Every VISTA project is accountable for the responsibilities that we will outline, but each sponsor may assign these responsibilities as appropriate within the organization and project. And it is the sponsor's responsibility to ensure that all subsites, if you have subsites, are in compliance with VISTA policies and procedures. In terms of member management, here are the core responsibilities. A successful VISTA project starts off with a strong and effective recruitment plan. At a minimum, this includes creating solid VISTA assignment descriptions, or VADs, which guide VISTA members in their service throughout the year because that's the document that they follow during their year of service. It also includes drafting catchy and honest opportunity listings to announce your position and attract top quality candidates, as well as recruiting, screening, interviewing, and recommending the best candidate for service in your VISTA project. It also includes providing an in-depth on-site orientation and training. We love acronyms, so we call it the OSOT. And you want to provide that to all incoming VISTA members at the beginning of their service, which includes the VISTA member orientation requirements, as well as fingerprinting instructions and deadlines. And I'll briefly say that, remember, all new VISTA members must start service in conjunction with a VISTA member orientation start date, and you can get those possible start dates from your CNCS state and regional office. All the details that we send VISTA members about their VISTA member orientation, which I'm sure you'll want to see and know what they are, they're located on the VISTA Campus website in the Starting VISTA section. So it's just vistacampus.gov/starting VISTA service. This on-site orientation and training should also include opportunities for professional development and learning for your VISTA member. We've seen strong VISTA sponsors do this really well, and they find ways to integrate various aspects of the organization and the community with important things the VISTA members should know, as well as with the interests and skills of the VISTA member. A few more important aspects in relation to the AmeriCorps VISTA member management. It's probably no surprise that the best projects offer day-to-day supervision and support of their members. This includes confirming that members have the space, supplies, and equipment necessary to carry out their service, providing reasonable accommodations to members who request them based on different abilities, and ensuring that members' activities are in line with their VADs and are focused on capacity building activities. Even the best run projects have member issues bubble up, so don't be disappointed if things get a little bit tricky. The important thing is to manage those member issues appropriately, which means addressing member issues as they arise, informing the CNCS state and regional office early of any issues that come up, and make sure to document it and put it in writing, including documenting all discussions, tracking the VISTA member's performance and leave, and keeping on top of the situation. And remember that only CNCS may remove members from your project, and only CNCS may terminate members. So your documentation of member issues and discussing them with the CNCS state and regional office is critical. In terms of timekeeping, again, it's a really good idea to develop some type of system to track your VISTA members' use of personal and medical leave, because it is your responsibility. Some sponsors do this on a spreadsheet, some have an electronic system that they use as long as the VISTA member is not considered an employee, but it is your responsibility to track their leave. And you can visit the VISTA member handbook for the rules regarding when it is permissible for VISTA members to use their leave. In addition to the 10 personal and 10 medical days that VISTA members receive, VISTA members are also entitled to most holidays observed by your organization, but seasonal breaks, such as being off for an extended period of time over the winter holidays, or for more than 2 consecutive days, should be discussed with your CNCS state and regional office. We like data. We hope you do too. So keep track of things. Have your members keep track of what they accomplish, not just for you and your reporting, but it'll also make sure that you have accurate data when you're requested of other information and when your VISTA member needs that for their own personal and professional development. Consider creating a procedure manual or resource to keep track of steps that you or your VISTA members take to develop and send out to communications, update an online website, or more. These elements are all part of sustainability, keeping various aspects of your project going, as you and your VISTA members identify things that need to be sustained well into the future. And as a reminder, the VISTA Sponsor Resource Guide is a comprehensive list of resources to help you successfully manage VISTA members. In addition to the topics mentioned earlier related to performance and member management, the following activities are allowed, but they must be approved in advance. So with prior approval by the sponsor and with approval by the CNCS state and regional office, AmeriCorps VISTA members are allowed minimal amounts of teleservice, which is serving at a location other than their project site for limited durations, to hold outside employment, and to attend educational courses. However, even though these activities are allowed, the VISTA member must request this through the project director and then have it approved through the CNCS state and regional office.
The CNCS state regional office is always thinking about what's best for the project and The office also has the ability to deny requests that may interfere with the VISTA member service or interfere with the project. To be safe, you should consult with your CNCS state or regional office if any changes are made that impact or will impact the project, subsites, or members. This could mean a change with project personnel and supervision of members, or it could mean that due to emerging community needs, a VAD must be tweaked to better support alleviating poverty in your community. Regardless, it's always a good idea to check in with your CNCS state regional office, and the sooner they know about these shifts, the more support they'll be able to give.
We're going to take a look now at some of your core responsibilities in adhering to restrictions on what can be done during VISTA service. Prior to VISTA service, VISTA members must and are required to complete the online Terms and Conditions course that details what's provided to and allowed by members during VISTA service. If a member violates one of the terms or conditions, you will need to contact your CNCS state and regional office staff immediately. Different violations have different repercussions, and for the protection of the project and any other members on board, it's critical to act promptly. In terms of criminal activity, VISTAs and VISTA sponsors must report any criminal activity that occurs while in service to their CNCS state and regional office. Pertaining to religious activity, engaging in religious instruction, conducting worship services, or engaging in any form of proselytizing during service time is prohibited. And in terms of prohibited political activity, engaging in partisan political activities while in service, such as engaging in fundraising for a partisan political campaign at any time, or advertising oneself as a VISTA while engaging in partisan political activity, are all prohibited. The Hatch Act is a federal law that was first enacted in 1939, and VISTA members are considered federal employees for a few limited purposes, including the Hatch Act. The Hatch Act ensures that federal employees and VISTA members do not participate in political activity prohibited under the rules of the Hatch Act. VISTA members also cannot be involved in voter registration as any part of their VISTA service. They can do it if it's not part of VISTA service and would just need to do it on their own time, not in VISTA gear, and not identifying as a VISTA member. So in general, VISTA members cannot engage in political activity, religious activity, lobbying, or union organizing as part of their service or while perceived to be a VISTA member. They can go to rallies or attend church services on their own non-VISTA time, but cannot engage in either type of activity while serving or while identifying as a VISTA member. Also, the Hatch Act prohibits VISTA members from fundraising or soliciting money for a partisan political campaign at any time during their year of service, and that is prohibited whether it's during their service hours or on their own time. However, they may personally donate to a partisan political campaign.
Members shall not perform duties that should be done or are typically done by paid staff or contractors. This would be a major red flag because VISTA members are placed at organizations not to take the place of staff, but to be catalysts for change by building capacity and strengthening organizations with the goal of eradicating poverty. And with nepotism, we ask that you avoid the actual appearance of favoritism in the operation of a VISTA placement. A VISTA member cannot be placed or assigned to a VISTA project if the VISTA member is in the immediate family or close relative of a project site staff member or vice versa. Direct service. The role of a VISTA is to build capacity to bring communities out of poverty, and members do not perform direct service activities, except if needed during training, or doing so is merely incidental to performing their VAD indirect service duties. For example, a member might design a school curriculum, but should not be the one regularly teaching children with the curriculum. Rather, they could recruit volunteers for that purpose. If you'd like more information or a full description of a prohibited activities, please visit Chapter 15 of the VISTA Member Handbook. Next, let's dive into core responsibilities for project management. It's important to know that all sponsors must follow the requirements and policies set forth in the Memorandum of Agreement your organization has entered into a legal agreement with CNCS. All projects must have an anti-poverty focus, that is, all project activities from the application to the VISTA assignment description should tie back to alleviating poverty in your community. And if your project is already underway, you might be responsible for the project continuation. Be sure to submit a continuation application 90 days before expiration of the Memorandum of Agreement. Let's take a brief moment for a quick check-in with everyone. So if you could please type into the chat box, what is your project start date? I see December 2019, January, October, and the next couple of months. Great. Thank you for that. I see a variety of start dates listed. And as with our question about the name of your program officer earlier, depending on when you started with the VISTA project, you may not know yet your exact project start date, and that is okay.
If your VISTA project operates at more than one location, multi-sites, multi-service sites, you are required to have a memorandum of understanding with each of your sub-sites. And you're also required to encourage partnership development through your multi-site sponsor. Depending on your agreement with CNCS, you might also be responsible for activities related to cost share. If you have any questions about your agreement with CNCS, you can access the agreement in eGrants or talk to your CNCS state and regional office. Finally, it's a good thing to know that everyone is responsible for reporting in some way. So let's spend a little more time talking about reporting requirements.
There are also core responsibilities for reporting. Each VISTA project submits a set of reports to help CNCS review project progress. The information you provide in these reports demonstrate your project's impact, demonstrate resource management, and allows us to provide you better technical assistance. Since there are important things to know, Eric and I will talk through a variety of required reports. As we start, it's good to know that your CNCS State Regional Office will provide all deadlines for your reports, and you'll be able to find instructions in the Sponsor Resource Guide. Let's walk through the main reports required from VISTA sponsors. All projects are required to submit Sponsor Verification Forms, or SVF, VISTA Project Progress Reports, PPRs, VISTA Progress Report Supplement, VPRSs, and Future Plan Forms, FPFs. Only projects that have a program or support grant have to submit a Federal Financial Report, or FFR. If you have questions about the type of grant you have with CNCS, access the agreement in eGrants or talk to your CNCS State Regional Office. Every 2 weeks, you will have to submit a sponsor verification form. This helps CNCS track which members are still actively serving at your project so we can prevent member overpayment. This information also ties indirectly to the VISTA member payroll for standard VISTA projects. Please be sure to set reminders for this report. And if you're going to be out of the office, determine who's going to submit this report on your behalf. This function must be completed by a staff member. Do not delegate it to another AmeriCorps VISTA member, an intern, or just another volunteer. You are also required to submit the project progress report, or PPRs. For the first year of your project, these are generally completed on a quarterly basis. The reports should build on each other. Check with your CNCS State Regional Office and an E-Grant for more details on due dates depending on your project year, because after your second year, progress reports are typically semi-annual. That transition is at the discretion of the CNCS State or Regional Office. The progress report information will be part of your project's overall record and will be used to evaluate a project's continuation. If you have questions on what you should include, I'll refer you to the PPR instructions in the VISTA Sponsor Resource Guide. If you are a project with multiple sites, you'll need to establish a way to aggregate information about members serving at those sites. Don't wait until your progress report is due to ask the question or to share a member's impact. We encourage you to share information with your CNCS State Regional Office as it happens. That way, our CNCS State Regional Offices can help share your successes and coach you through challenges as they come.
As you think about VISTA reports, think about the benefit to your organization of documenting your progress, keeping track of lots of details, and striving for sustainability of many of your programs and activities. Reporting probably doesn't sound exciting, but you should be excited to talk about what your VISTA members and VISTA projects have completed and how you can grow and improve on building capacity, eliminating poverty in your community. So, the next report I will mention is the VISTA Progress Report Supplement, or VPRS. This is an annual report, and it tracks demographic information for your project. Obviously, it's for us, but some of that information might be useful for you and your project as well. This report is typically due late in the calendar year and is based on our agency's fiscal year, which is October 1st of one year through September 30th of the next. This means you will likely have to track information with your members on a monthly basis to accurately submit this report. You can find instructions on how to complete this report in the VISTA Sponsor Resource Guide. Also, as Tanya mentioned earlier, you must complete a Future Plans Form, or FPF, for every member at the end of their term of service. This Future Plans Form unlocks for the member in their my.americorps.gov account about 90 days prior to their end of service. The VISTA member must complete the first part, Part A, before they end their service. Then you, as their supervisor or sponsor, will submit Part B, which evaluates the member's service. We do recommend that you coordinate with the member's supervisor if you are not directly supervising this individual. The member then has the opportunity to review the comments that you put in Part B. For that reason, we also recommend that you host an exit interview so that the member is aware of what you're entering for their review. Once those two sections are complete, it then goes to the CNCS State and Regional Office for review. In terms of the Federal Financial Report, or FFR, for program and support grants, there is an additional reporting requirement such as the FFR. Make sure that you connect with your CNCS State and Regional Office for more information on what is required of your specific grant. And be sure to loop in the fiscal staff of your organization as appropriate. If you do not have a program or support grant, you don't need to worry about this report. And finally, if you have a cost share agreement, cost share invoices are payable upon receipt. You will receive them either on a biweekly or a monthly basis in e-grants, depending on your agreement.
I'd like to share a few key tips about these reports and forms. We recommend you complete these forms early in the process. It can help you manage member recruitment and ties in directly to member and alumni benefits, specifically accessing the Education Award. For example, if a member wants to re-enroll or extend their service, then you should document how they've successfully supported your project and accomplished activities on their VAD and rate them accordingly. This will help the CNCS State Regional Office evaluate your and their request and compare it to our budget. If a member needs to leave their service early or terminate their service, the CNCS State Regional Office can unlock the Future Plans Form. However, the request to release this form should not be the CNCS State Regional Office's first notification that the member will be terminating their service. Please bring the CNCS State Regional Office into the conversation early so that we can help you troubleshoot any potential issues. I know this is a lot of information to absorb, so again, if you have any questions, reach out to the CNCS State Regional Office. We are here to help. You've heard us talk about working with your CNCS State/Regional Office quite a bit already. Another core responsibility is to share the good, the bad, and the ugly with your CNCS State Regional Office. By communicating openly and early, you position them to best support you. There are some things that the CNCS State Regional Office needs to hear about promptly, rather than when your next progress report is submitted. Please be sure to alert your CNCS State Regional Office of major accomplishments and events, such as new grant awards, visits from elected officials, and press coverages, as they happen, rather than waiting for the next progress report. Your CNCS State Regional Office will want to hear about and spread the word about your success. Also, notifying them promptly of major emergencies. That's to include member hospitalization or arrest, if a member has gone AWOL, or a member has decided to end their service early, as well as any acute or chronic challenges with members. Your CNCS State Regional Office is here to support you and your needs to be up to date on your project status in order to do that effectively. Communicate with them about proposed changes to your project's goals and member activities. That is, any changes to the VISTA assignment description, as well as shifts in staff supervision or organization status.
You will also want to share information about your VISTA project with all of your communities and networks. The more you talk about the VISTA program, the better the support you get. So you might want to list AmeriCorps VISTA as a funder of your organization. We strongly encourage you to that as part of your memorandum of agreement. You will also want to list AmeriCorps VISTA in your materials, on your websites, and mention the program in verbal conversations about your project. Keep all of your networks in the loop about your VISTA project to both spread the word on the capacity that you're building, as well as to cultivate engagement and promote opportunities to serve with your organization. Shifting gears a little bit, we're going to talk now about your core responsibilities for regulatory compliance. As a VISTA sponsor, it is your responsibility to comply with all regulations and requirements of the VISTA program. CNCS staff conduct monitoring and compliance activities throughout the life of your project and want to also make sure that you are in compliance. Since AmeriCorps VISTA is a federal program and, like anything supported by taxpayer funds, we need to ensure that the program is well run, doing what it's supposed to, and spending money wisely.
CNCS staff ensure compliance reviewing VADs to make sure that they are appropriate for VISTA service and free from non-approved activities. CNCS staff may also conduct site visits and compliance monitoring visits. Site visits are generally conducted by CNCS staff, occasionally headquarters, as well as you may want to be informed in nature in order to provide technical assistance, or they might be for general project monitoring. Compliance monitoring visits are always scheduled in advance and are structured. They will also probably include interviews about project staff, VISTA members, advisory council members, and community members or beneficiaries. Compliance monitoring visits will include a review of documentation and procedures. Also, a letter outlining conclusions and needed corrected actions is shared after the visit. CNCS conducts these visits to make sure grantees are following the rules for AmeriCorps members and do proper grant management, and also to provide to VISTA sponsoring organizations. You'll see that VISTA members also have a role when it comes to regulatory compliance. It is important to know that CNCS instructs VISTA members who feel they've been asked to do things that are not appropriate for their service to first talk about it with their supervisor. From there, they can talk with the CNCS State Regional Office. If the issue isn't resolved, or if they want to remain anonymous, and they believe that matter relates to fraud, waste, or abuse, they can contact the CNCS Office of Inspector General. If a VISTA member believes they have been subject to illegal discrimination related to their VISTA service, they should immediately contact the CNCS Equal Opportunity Program, which will also be covered a little later. Remember to report concerns to your CNCS State Regional Office, and they are there to help develop, manage, and monitor VISTA projects, support you in managing your project and your VISTA members, assist with member emergencies, challenging situations, and questions of policy, as well as we are here to support you by connecting you to resources. We talked about prohibited activities a bit earlier in our presentation. Now, let's review a few important points. VISTA members should focus on what's outlined in the VISTA assignment description, which should tie directly to the overall project plan that was approved by CNCS. Your VISTA service should be to build capacity, not undertake activities that can be construed as direct service. If VISTA members are being asked to take over the work of staff, say someone who left the organization that's replacing or supplementing staff and it's not allowed. Or if a VISTA member is mostly doing administrative support for someone else, that's also not appropriate work for a VISTA member.
Looking at our agenda again, we've covered a lot today. We've covered the big picture of national service. We talked through some of the major elements of VISTA sponsor responsibilities. To ensure that you start off on the right foot, we're going to now share some member and project management keys to success because, again, from VISTA headquarters and from all of our staff, we want to make sure that we can support you and have successful VISTA projects in the field. So here are some recommendations. By now, it should be absolutely no surprise that ongoing communication with your CNCS state and regional office is critical. Make sure that they're aware of any challenges, but also a lot of the successes that you have. In terms of recruitment, start early, be proactive. Take time to locate members that are a good fit. Know the member benefit, understand what it means to live on the living allowance so you can support your members. And invest time in drafting compelling opportunity listings to hook the right candidate, since they all have to apply through the my.americorps.gov website. Don't forget to offer professional development and support. Whether that's trainings or resources, it really helps VISTAs feel more involved and retain them in the program. And also develop a really strong and effective on-site orientation and training that oftentimes can make or break a VISTA member service. In terms of ongoing support and supervision, for supervising members, it's really critical to address issues early on. Again, keep track of time and attendance. Make sure that the VADs and all the activities avoid direct service and other prohibited activities, and work with your CNCS state and regional office if there's any request for outside employment, teleservice, or very minimal direct service at the beginning. If you have a leader, understand the role of a leader, that this person is not a supervisor, but what their roles are, and utilize them to support your member. Schedule and maintain regular meetings with VISTAs. We recommend what we call the 10-10-10 method, giving the VISTA member the first 10 minutes to ask questions and talk about what they've accomplished, providing the next 10 minutes focused on you speaking, responding, and giving advice, and then leaving the final 10 minutes for clarification, questions, and next steps. Keeps it pretty short, regularly scheduled, easy to do once a week. And then work hard to retain and motivate your members by showing appreciation and recognition of them and their work. A little bit goes a long way. As your VISTA member gets well into their service, think carefully about their close of service, because you will want to help prepare them for their next steps once service is complete. This not only helps them transition out of service, but it also helps you start planning either for the next VISTA member or for transitioning activities to another staff member if your VISTA project is finishing. In terms of success related to project management, again, at the top of the list, ongoing communication with the CNCS State and Regional Office. We say it a lot, but we cannot stress it enough. Remember to reach out to them and tell them about the good and the bad before it gets ugly. We don't like ugly. Be sure to operate your projects in accordance with applicable laws, regulations, policies, certifications, and assurances, with best efforts to accomplish the goals set out for the AmeriCorps VISTA members in the project application. And also, operate your projects in consultation with and involving the people of the communities to be served in planning, developing, and implementing the project. Like all federal agencies, CNCS has an Inspector General whose office is responsible for preventing and detecting waste, fraud, and abuse. If you encounter any issues with your project, address them at the sponsor level and, if necessary, with your CNCS state and regional office. If the issues are not resolved or if you want to remain anonymous, you can contact the Office of Inspector General. The Office of Inspector General takes all allegations seriously and conducts thorough investigations to ensure compliance with federal regulations and the terms of the VISTA program. VISTA members are protected by VISTA and CNCS from being subjected to discrimination or harassment. You also have an obligation to make sure that you do not subject anyone to discrimination or harassment. This applies to everyone you come in contact with, including VISTA members, clients, volunteers, and employees at your service site. CNCS's Equal Opportunity Office is responsible for and charged with reviewing and processing discrimination complaints filed by CNCS service members, including VISTA members. And with that, Tanya will cover important next steps as you continue through your VISTA sponsor orientation and work to create and maintain a well-run VISTA program.
We hope today's presentation has given you a good sense of the role of the VISTA sponsor and a sense of where to go to learn more. Now, let's review next steps as we start to wrap up today. Following this webinar, please email your CNCS State Regional Office that you completed this session. Your CNCS State Regional Office will be able to answer your project-specific questions and can review next steps as you continue to learn about VISTA, your project, and your roles and responsibilities. If you are a sub-site supervisor, you will receive project-specific training from your project director. Remember that this webinar is just one part of the entire VISTA Sponsor Orientation. Make sure you go back to the VISTA Sponsor Orientation section of the VISTA campus and look at the orientation checklist to complete the remaining items. As you prepare to manage a VISTA project, take time to review the resources that have already been shared with you and become familiar with the VISTA campus. You will find many helpful resources there, including discussion forums in the Supervisors Cafe, a discussion thread, and respond to other supervisors. You'll be able to share ideas and resources, answer each other's questions, and more. And finally, be sure to pursue other trainings as directed by the VISTA program and your CNCS State Regional Office.
We greatly appreciate your feedback and presentations like this. So in a minute, you'll see in the chat panel a link to our SurveyMonkey. Please take a minute to fill out your responses and your feedback. We do evaluate this. It helps us to make changes for future VISTA sponsor orientation webinars and monthly webinars. But again, you'll see the link in the chat panel. Also, the recording of today's presentation will be posted on the VISTA campus in about 7 to 10 days on the VISTA Sponsor Orientation Materials page. So we have about 5 minutes left in the presentation. We want to try to get to as many questions as possible, so I'll quickly remind you, you can post your questions in the chat panel as you've been doing. I've been queuing them up. If you called in or want to ask a question verbally through your computer, you can use the raise hand feature, and our partners Kim and Jeff will let me know and we'll unmute your line at that time. But we'll start with the questions based on the order in which they came in. One question that came in from Tyler was about receiving a VISTA member orientation, what we call a VMO, deadline sheet that has the VISTA member orientation dates as well as different color codings and other terms. Could we talk about what these different fields mean? So I'll quickly answer that by saying we in VISTA headquarters have an internal VISTA member orientation calendar that has a lot of dates that are critical to the stuff we do that's not 100% relevant to sponsors because there's all these other dates that we need to know. We do give a version of that calendar to your CNCS state and regional office, and it's up to your state and regional office to determine what dates they give you and in what format they give it to you. So to your specific question, Tyler, the color coding and the additional fields, I do not know because that sounds like that may be something either your sponsor, if you're an intermediary in a sub-site, either your sponsor color coded it, or I would actually recommend you check with your CNCS program officer or portfolio manager just to inquire so that you know what those fields are. The next question was for volunteer coordination, can VISTA members do volunteer orientation? Yes, VISTA members can certainly conduct a volunteer orientation, but as we talk about sustainability, VISTA members should not be regularly doing the volunteer orientation all the time because that doesn't necessarily help with sustaining it, building the program, and transitioning that to someone else. But certainly, VISTA members may be involved in giving some advice or recommendations as to how to improve the volunteer orientation and working with volunteers. They may need to, at the beginning, conduct 1 or 2 volunteer orientations to really see how the orientation is run, but they should not be the person responsible for conducting the orientation every single time. Tanya, here's a question I'll pass to you in case it's a question that you deal with on a regular basis in terms of cost share. For cost share, how does an intermediary receive payments from their subsites? Do you have any insight on that, or do you want me to tackle that question?
Thanks, Eric. I think that's a question that's done on a local level, and it's a case-by-case scenario. Definitely you want to reach out to the project director of your intermediary project to better answer that question. And but if you have anything to add to that, Eric, it would be greatly appreciated.
No, I don't have anything else to add. I know sometimes the details are up to each intermediary and sponsor depending on how they collect that money and when they collect it, since cost shares do go through the intermediary, but that's a good point to follow up with the CNCS state and regional office. So we have time for maybe 2 more questions and then I want to wrap up. So there's a question about, will we provide guidelines on the best place to post listings, such as Indeed or Idealist? What I can say is the VISTA program has a VISTA Marketing Outreach and Recruitment Unit that helps with some of these things. There's a lot of suggestions on the VISTA campus from supervisors and members in the discussion forums. Obviously, we recommend you do not use the MyAmeriCorps website opportunity listings as your sole source of recruiting. You might want to use your website, post on Indeed, Idealist, even Craigslist, different places that you hear of and talk to people about, popular places, monster.com. Some of them charge, some don't. These are not sites that are officially endorsed by CNCS or VISTA, but sites that we've had experience with or heard of people using. You can also ask any very specific outreach questions that you have to vistaoutreach@cns.gov. In the last question, I will take right now is for new programs and intermediary projects trying to figure out cost shares. Again, cost share, there is a general idea of how it works, but there's also some specifics depending on the program. And certainly, Tanya, if you have any other insight, feel free to add them. But I would say in that case, especially if you're a new program, check with your CNCF state and regional office on what their decision is about cost share for your program. If you're a new program, you may or may not have to do cost share yet, but they would be the ones to give you the specific details on that. Tanya, did you have anything else to add?
If this question is related to how to submit payments or just any general setting up of the cost share portion, there is a cost share manual on the VISTA campus website that is a great, walks you through the various pay.gov steps. But like Eric mentioned, you may or may not have any cost share portion in your VISTA project, but how you can check if you do have cost share portion is if you go to eGrants and bring up your application budget, you will have had a slot allotted for the non-federal share. So if you do not have a slot allotted on your non-federal share of your VISTA application, then you don't have a cost share portion. But just to reiterate, if you do have any project-specific questions, you can reach out to your CNCS state office or regional office.
Thank you very much, Tanya. 4 more slides left, so let's quickly move on. I don't see any other questions either. So remember, we talked about the acronym list. If you'd like to download the answers, we strongly recommend you do that. It's a Word document. You can also add other acronyms that you hear about. Make this resource work for you, because we do use a lot of acronyms, and we want you to be well informed. So finally, looking at the agenda, we've covered a lot. We've gone through just about everything. Again, as Tanya said, if there's any questions specifically related to your project, your best point of contact is your CNCS state office or CNCS regional office. One quick note is that as a new sponsor, we do monthly webinars for supervisors. I won't go into detail, but I will say the information will be posted on the campus. The next webinar we're doing is Tuesday, November 19th. The title of it is The Fundamentals of Managing Multiple VISTA Project Sites. And it's really ideal for intermediaries and people who have multiple sites and want to know the best ways to manage them and succeed with them. So stay tuned for more information about that. Finally, I want to say thank you especially to my co-presenter, Tanya Veliz, for all of her work at CNCS, but especially with this webinar, to Barbara Reynolds and other CNCS staff, to Kim and Jeff at LSI for their work on this webinar. We, of course, want to thank you for joining us today and for being in your integral role as VISTA project sponsor. This concludes our session. Have an amazing day, and thank you for being part of VISTA.